conversation with Dr. Ayogele Nzinga, uh, playwright, poet, Renaissance woman, recently appointed Poet Laureate of Oakland. She's the founder of the Black Arts Movement Business District, CDC, and other things. She's also putting on BAM Fest for Black August 2021 this year. So we're going to have a conversation since our relationship goes back about 40 years when I taught drama at Laney College. So we'll get to Laney College in a moment, but I want Ayo to speak about her early life. You are like a child of drama, is that correct? When did you get into theater and drama and all that? Beginning with some of your early life, where you come from, where you grew up.
This question finished. I have two birth certificates. I either was born in State Line, Mississippi, or I was born in Chicago, Illinois.
How you get two birth certificates?
Well, Route 66 runs from State Line, Mississippi, all the way through up to California. A lot of things happened on Route 66.
Right.
Route 66 is what white folks have taught us to call a migration route.
Yeah.
I call it more like a refugee route. It was the escape route.
Yeah.
The escape route out of the South, but the escape life from an agricultural type of life, the lure of the city. Farther down Route 66 you went, maybe the more likely you were to find freedom. And that freedom here is a metaphor for a lot of things, you know. So my mother was extremely young at the time of my birth. And so my grandparents, my grandmother lived with her parents, my great-grandparents, in State Line, Mississippi, on a farm. And that is the place my mother was getting away from. And so, like I said, if you look at Route 66, you can see Chicago is along the way. My grandmother saved me from being an orphan, because had she not come to get me and taken me back to State Line, then I wouldn't have had a family. My mother, being very young, was determined to get somewhere, and she can. I wrote about that in the play Glory.
Yes.
And the line that I used in there, beautiful southern birds stopped to give birth and continued on. So my mother ended up in California, and eventually my grandmother came looking for her daughter, but also opportunity. Her brother had left, and there's a story of us owning land and selling land. Perhaps because of the trauma attached to it, the extreme poverty of owning the worst parts of land, and then also the theft of labor that ended you up on the worst plots of land. So they had begun the process after my great-grandparents passed away. And there's a story in there too. My first book, my first book on nomadic, that was called The Horse Eaters. And The Horse Eaters is the story of how hard my great-grandparents fought to hold on to that land, and the idea of the children of my grandmother's generation, that life lived in the city and that they needed to get away from the land. So they literally sold the land that my great-grandparents ate horses to hold on to be able to pass them land. And as soon as they died, they sold the land, and it allowed them to be things. that my great grandparents couldn't be. It allowed them to have what for them was a life of modernity and certainly more ease than working on a farm, but it came with losing the land and not being landed and working then for until now in order to have control of land again. So the idea of displacement and land and being rooted is a thing for me. So my grandmother came to California because she had a brother who had moved here and was a real estate agent and was doing well. And also, this is where my mother landed up. And so in elementary school, I ended up back in my mother's house.
Where
so,
at?
In Vallejo.
Okay.
My mother loved Vallejo. Vallejo was a naval town. It was brand new. It wasn't too big. And so I think that Vallejo always felt like the country to me.
Mhm.
So I think that there was a bit of that was familiar to her. But of course, this was California, and it wasn't the country. It was just small.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, since you mentioned your mother, and I have a question about your mother, so maybe before we go into your dramatic upbringing, because it seems that some of your mother's dramaturgy influenced you. So tell me about your mother that you see you've written about, of course, in Glory, and
I think like
tell me
lots
about your mother, her personality. That
I think like lots of children, I had to grow up and experience some of the things that might have challenged my mother for me to fully appreciate my mother.
okay,
We did not get along well for most of my childhood. I attached myself to my grandmother, living at my grandmother's house. I was an only child. The life of an only child is very different than being the only sibling in a house full of 3 or 4 kids.
right,
And the way I was raised as a small child and a toddler was not the environment of my mother's house. I know now there was lots of time for resentment and to my mother was young when she had me. She was still relatively young to have so many children and to have lived so much, to have traveled across the country by herself as a young teenager, and then to end up in a house with that many kids.
how many kids are you talking about? How many kids you have?
I am the oldest of 9 children,
Okay,
and so I'm the oldest of 9 children, and myself and the 2 brothers that are directly under me did not begin our lives in our mother's house.
yes,
I went with my grandmother. Another brother who's passed away now, Nehemiah, went with a friend of the family or an aunt. And then my brother Michael, who I actually didn't meet until I was an adult, was raised by a friend of the family, and he actually searched for us as an adult and introduced himself. So, by the time I was taken back home, there were 2 or 3 kids there. Then my younger siblings, and my mom was still a young woman, and so I made a good babysitter, which was really
yes,
a different sort of existence from a latchkey only child. You know, nobody ever touched my stuff at my grandmother's house.
yes.
I
yes.
spent a great deal of time reading and in sort of only kids, they have it pretty good, you know.
Yes, yes, yes.
And then to go into a place where everybody touch your toys, I don't think I've been able to own anything since.
Yes.
I turned around and had a bunch of kids, and I think the last time I owned things that nobody molested was when I was at my
But going to
grandmother's
your
house.
mother.
My mother was a striver, as I think back now. My mother, there's a movie by that stars Leonardo DiCaprio. It's called Catch Me If You Can. And in it, Leonardo played a con man. And he was a doctor, he was an airplane pilot, he was all sorts of fantastical things that he didn't really have the education or the training to be. In many ways, my mother would have given Leonardo DiCaprio a run for his money.
Yes.
At the time my mother died, she was a nurse practitioner. The problem with that is my mother probably never finished junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
My mother used to clean up Glenn Campbell's house, the singer.
Mm-hmm.
I used to wear Glenn Campbell's kids' hand-me-down clothes. But my mother told that story as being in business with Glenn Campbell, having something to do with his artistic career. According to my mother, she graduated from the University of California. Again, my mother probably didn't have a junior high school diploma, but people did not challenge that. She comported herself in a way that I don't recall her ever being called on any of these things.
Yes.
And I always lived in a house. I have no recollections of a couple of times, maybe between places, where I recall us ever being in an environment that wasn't a single family home.
Yes.
My mother was married more times than Elizabeth Taylor.
And Marvin X.
I don't know. I haven't kept up with it. But I think she could, she could hold on. She's within the digital too. So my mother had huge dreams.
Yes.
And she very much did not want the life living on a very small farm would have afforded her. And what I admire about my mother as I've gotten older is how much personal drive, how much personal just power, personal ashe it took to be able to manifest those things, to be able to walk into these white rooms and say, I do this, I do that, and have these intelligent keepers of the gate hire her to do things that...
She was somewhat of a con artist, would you say, or what?
I called her a striver.
A striver. Hustler.
They say...
But she has all these different stories and personalities and personas.
Well...
As you said.
She figured out how to be successful in the world with the cards that she was dealt.
Right.
And again, sometimes we don't have an appreciation for our parents until we've had to endure some of the things they've had to endure or get mature enough in order to consider those things from a perspective that's not a child's perspective.
Yes.
Often when some of what's in Glory about my mother is from a child's perspective. I play 5 characters in there. But I also offer you my mother's perspective, where she tells you...
This is in Glory.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, she tells you she ain't going to let nothing sit on her dreams, that she refuses. And so I am cut from that cloth.
Okay.
In a lot of ways. I am determined. I am stubborn. I think my relationship with my children is different than her relationship with her children. I also think that she learned how to be a parent. It occurred to me that if she was pregnant with me at 15 years old, who was parenting her? How does a 15-year-old get pregnant and hitchhike across the country and end up in California?
Yeah.
How fucking brave is that?
Yes.
To be 15 years old, to have that kind of oomph. I don't want to be here, I'm going to be over there. And she survived.
Yes.
And I can imagine...
Fearless, sounds like.
And I can imagine being a woman myself, that wasn't all gravy, But she survived,
Yes.
And after a while, she got over the habit of giving away children,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
and
yes, yes.
she raised a house full of kids.
Yes.
And I think that as she got older and she knew better, I sincerely think she did better.
Yes.
And I am fortunate that before she died young.
Mhm.
She died young. My grandmother
What age?
died
What
young.
age did she die?
Um,
50s,
no,
30s,
Um,
40s?
maybe late 30s.
Okay.
I could do the math. Things
Yeah.
like that. I have a traumatic memory.
Yeah.
Let me see. My mother died in her mid 30s. I just
Okay.
did the mental
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
math. So, there was a time when I was really young, before I figured out some things, when I could have been really resentful
Mhm.
about her. I don't, a part of perhaps the ease in my life, or perhaps a sign just of maturity, is I understand her better now. And in understanding her better, I admire her as much as I perhaps used to resent her,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
When I think back with all those kids, like I say, I never lived in an apartment.
Yeah.
My mama cooked every day. We didn't eat no Kraft macaroni and cheese, you
Mhm.
know. I lived in a house where there were fruit trees and flowers,
Mhm.
you know. There was weirdness in there and dysfunctionality, you
Mhm.
know. But
So let's move
even the
this.
dysfunctionality, because my mama quit buying me clothes
Mhm.
when I was I was in middle school, late
Yeah.
middle school.
Yes.
I can remember the last set of school clothes. I gotta actually remember what they were. And for a while, my mother was a big woman. I've always been tall, but my mother probably weighed 100 pounds more than I did.
Mhm.
And in high school, my mother made me wear her clothes.
Mhm.
I mean, it seems crazy and weird, but I understand it now. My mother was pregnant with me and hitchhiking across the country at 15.
Right.
It was a very uncomfortable thing to endure. I think that I grew up then with all sort of issues about being able to see myself in the mirror,
Right.
but I think she was trying to protect me. Just like when she told me I couldn't be, unfortunately for her, what the gods had whispered in my ear, because that wasn't safe. I think she looked at me, I looked like my mother,
Mhm.
and she saw herself, and it terrified her. And so, all the times perhaps she never got told no, or no one was strict enough, she told me no all those times. And even at the point of making me unattractive,
Mhm.
that too
Mhm.
was to protect me. I found out that the man whose last name I was raised with, that's not my father. And, you know, now kids can go on 21.com. Y'all ought to start telling the truth, because we're going to find out anyway. The man who was my father was a married dude, and he was considerably older than my mother. Again, you know, how do I hold the grudge against a 15-year-old who did not know how to parent?
Right.
And that was her experience.
Right.
And people can say, well, things were different back in the day. Old ass dudes ain't got no business creeping around with little teenage girls. And so, you know, life is complex.
Well, tell me, let's move ahead here to your dramatic career in your beginning. Myself, I'm a product of the Oakland Recreation Department, children's drama. What about you?
I think that drama and fantasy became a part of my life actually as a result of me being molested as a child. A common story amongst children, male and female, that were molested as very young children, is that they have fantastic imaginations. because that's how they survived. They got very adept at being able not to be where their body was. I also read a lot. I read at my grandmother's because it was just a thing to do. I read at my mother's to escape, to feed my need to be able to divorce my spirit and my mind from my body.
Right.
So I always made up stories. I was one of those little kids who thought, surely this was wrong. This ain't my mama. Somebody gonna come and save me. This is the wrong family. I discovered early that through literature, one could travel. You could go places that you weren't. And then two teachers stand out to me. A sixth grade teacher named Mr. Caesar. And a and a seventh grade teacher named Cynthia Smith. Mr. Caesar introduced me to Edgar Allan Poe, and Mr. Caesar is probably the first person who realized that I was good at reciting things, that I could act. He probably didn't look at it like that. He wasn't a dramatist. I think Mr. Caesar's discipline was actually math.
Yeah.
But he taught math in an English class, and he liked Poe. And then in seventh grade, Cynthia Smith, who had been a forensics champion, introduced me to Langston Hughes.
Okay.
You've been reading my stuff. You might even, long enough, you might even remember, I've got a poem called The First Time I Heard Hughes. And I talk about how the word sung on the big lip drama teacher's tongue. That was Cynthia Smith.
Yeah.
I admired her greatly, and forensics, she introduced me into the field of forensics. So I was on the forensics team. Citing became a thing I did.
Yeah.
And I've always been obsessive. So having been introduced to the Harlem Renaissance, I gobbled up the entire thing and then went backwards to negritude. And so by the time I met you, I had gobbled up three movements in their totality. And in this, one of the things that is a residual of having been molested as a child and using a technique of imagination to survive. People tell you put your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
My feet are rarely on the ground. I'm always someplace else. So I'm in the clouds, on my head. My first husband told me he was surprised I didn't step in a lot of shit because I was always
Look it up.
Yes. So it was poured into me. I firmly believe, like Somé, in his discussion of the Dagara people in Burkina Faso, it's like they believe that everybody is born with a purpose.
Yeah.
So I believe there are words and drama, storytelling. That's what I'm supposed to do. It's what was whispered in my ear before I took my first breath.
Right.
And the ability to inhabit those rooms literally saved my life as a child. And having reached the age that I've reached, I can look back over my life and see that whenever I got very far from that, bad things happened to me. Not like my mother. I'm tough and I'm stubborn, so I survived them. But there was a discernible, if you look back over my life, the road was smooth when I was creating art and that was my world. When I was not creating drama, I was involved in drama. I was always making drama. So I've come to the conclusion that I don't like drama in the street. The only kind of drama I like is on stage where someone has a possibility of getting paid and there will be applause.
Yeah.
And everybody goes home alive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and of course, that kind of drama is light.
Yes.
The other kind of drama, they used to call me Bowdy Bowdy.
Yeah.
Girl, bring the thunder. I was not nice, okay?
Yeah.
So that wasn't a good kind of drama. That drama was the result of the trauma of growing up and trying to get to where I am
So
now.
what age were you when you were at the Nora Vaughn's Black Repertory Group Theater?
I was in my 20s.
You was in your 20s?
Yeah. Nora Vine. I life has been good. The universe has been good. Nora Vine is also one of my mentors.
Yes.
And for all the young people out there right now that have somebody that is pouring into them, and you laughing at them because their wig is crooked, or because they're going off in a room after the play and they're counting up all of the profits and
Right.
coming out and giving you an envelope, and you don't know, leave them people alone.
Uh-huh.
Because them people those are the shoulders you stand on.
Right.
So I worked with Nora when she was on Alcatraz.
Yes.
In,
In the storefront.
It was a cleaners, is what it used to be.
Uh-huh.
And our stage was literally built like in the big window. The stage was built in that corner and built out. And Mama Vine we would have rehearsals like in the evening. She was raising a family.
Yes.
And I have no knowledge of where she worked, but I know intelligently she must have worked somewhere because they wouldn't have had the money
Yes.
to pour into this theater practice.
Yes. Yes.
Her and Papa Von Burrow. And so, late in the evening, this older woman would have these people in. We made her drink. She would be walking around with a paper cup in a brown bag and another brown bag. We always knew that wasn't coffee in there, okay? And in her muumuu, and every now and then the wave would be a little crooked. She had a deep knowledge of Harlem Renaissance Theater.
Right.
She also had a deep knowledge of how to be authentically black on stage. And she gave us a place to shine.
Yes.
And she wanted a theater of her own, and I've always felt a bit sad that the current black rep wasn't manifested until after she
Yes.
passed away.
Yes.
But
yes.
Black Rep, the oldest black theater in the state of California, I am glad to say that Nora was perhaps the first theater person who understood that I might be a little extra talented, She fussed at me a lot.
Yeah.
But she never, said, don't come back.
Right.
She, and to me, I understand that today that is wanting somebody to be everything that they could possibly be.
Right.
And the funny thing is, in that theater over on Peralta, where I would
Alcatraz?
have, no, over on Peralta, the one they ended up building for
Yes.
me.
Where they're at currently. The
Like I
black-
told you, I look just like my mother.
Yeah.
Okay. I looked in the mirror one day and I saw my mother. Also, as a director, a thespian, a theater founder, I also became Nora. I was you for 6 months or so.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment.
Them niggas made me drink. I
Oh.
would be walking around in the backyard, and I had my cognac. And it was a different generation. It wasn't even in a bag,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
There was no glass.
Yes.
I got my little half pint, and I am sitting there, and I am hearing the things that we used to
Yes.
tell Mama Vaughn, and I am thinking, I've become Nora.
That's right.
This is crazy
Yes.
and wonderful.
Yes.
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 So Nora had a profound effect on me. I'm grateful to be on the wall at that theater. There's a picture there now. When you go into Black Rep, if you go into the office, there's a picture of me in the cast of Wedding Band. So I've always had teachers show up. I have always been poured into. And I think a part of my good luck is I woke up and I realized that. And that's a blessing.
Yeah. So let's move on to Laney College Theater and the Wild Crazy Ride of Marvin X. How did you get into my, what did you learn while you were in my class?
Okay, so
1981 we're talking about.
I had an experience in the Peralta College District. I didn't graduate from high school.
Okay.
And I did not know how to matriculate. No one ever told me. I had to figure this out. And this is also back in the time when there were what we call professional students. I had taken a break and I'd had a couple of kids, but I did not know how to matriculate.
Yes.
Or I probably, I don't know. At any rate, I had an African American theater class. I went through the entire Peralta theater system. I did drama in Alameda. By the time I met you, I had been with Fred. I can't remember what his last name is. At Alameda, I had been at Merritt in the Flatlands, and had done some theater there, and then had ended up at Laney with Levinson over the theater department.
Lou Levinson.
And so I walked into an African American theater class after I'd done theater with all these basically white men. And I was excited because who's teaching that class? None other than Marvin X. I had read about Marvin X, and I was familiar with some of his work, and I was totally discombobulated to walk in the class on the first day and to be told that I'm the director and handed a script. Huh? well, aren't you going to teach us stuff? Marvin's style of teaching is by fire. And so what were we doing? So the play was In the Name of Love. That's what I met. Doris Samuels.
Doris Knight.
Doris Knight. And Zaid Wangozi.
Zaid Wangozi.
And a lot of other really talented people. I also met Zaid's brother at the same time, Rudy Wangozi.
Ricky Clay, Bakary, the Uhuru House.
Yes. So
what's the name? Vern Cromartie. Dr. Vern Cromartie.
Yes,
later.
Dr. Vern, yes. And so we did theater.
She was my wife. She was my girlfriend. But I took the pussy. I'm so wise, yet so foolish. I mean, must I always blow it when I have it in my hand? Must I be so greedy for my lady that I consume her wound, turn it into a tomb? Sex is only a way to the spirit. Anything else is prostitution. When I get weak, she gets weak. And we mirror each other for better or worse. Yet I am controlling the situation. I mean, if it wasn't for me, it would never be what it was of good result. I don't deny my lady tries to meet my every request. She does her best. And I'm so full of energy. I'll wipe her out too. We got a car. with 2 atom bombs exploding in the beer can.
Be patient, man, be patient. There is nothing to worry about. You know, I've waited years for you to get right, and now you want my perfect love overnight? Be cool, fool. Go away and pray and pray and pray.
I love my lady. I love the Spirit of God in my woman. I think about the years she stood by, how she cried when I was really a fool.
You still a fool, nigga. The time must be considered. You're too aggressive. Don't be so emotional. You're too physical. You have no self-respect. Your tongue is vile.
Oh, Allah. Oh, guide us down right there. Hold our hand when we slip in the dark. I'm not a fool. Just a nigga who needs to quit tripping. Oh, Allah. There's so much I don't understand. Am I yet a wise man? I can see in my blindness what brings you. Control myself. Is there anything else?
Yes. I'm the other woman. The invisible woman. I love her. Just as much as she loves him. Maybe more. Because I don't know how much she loves him anyway. Yeah, she got papers on it. But papers don't mean a damn thing to me. All I want is justice. Nobody wants more than justice. But nobody wants less than justice. I want equality too. I want equal time. I told him, hey, set up a schedule and keep it. I told him, you be man enough to say to your other woman,
look, you are my woman, and she is my woman too. Now I know both. It's time we work together.
now he says he told her. Now he says he's trying to break her in finessefully. Well, I'm trying to wait patiently. Because I'm not going nowhere. There ain't nowhere to go. I'm sticking with my black man. My African man. Hey, I've been with this man for 15 years off and on. How long has she been with the man? What does she know about him? I mean, she damn sure don't know much as I know. Hey, that's why I stick with it. Because I know him so well. We should work together. Seeing as we have the same interests, same everything. I mean, don't have me hating my sister. Don't have my sister hating me. Hey, I'm about progress. I'm willing to share him, not just because I want to share somebody, but because it just ain't no men these days. I mean, you ask some of these sisters, searching for a man in the bar, at the club, at school, in church. Just ain't no men these days.
Talk to him.
Hey, you give us some of these brothers today? They try to be punks. Now, what woman want a punk? I mean, a punk wants the same thing I want. You know that's a damn shame. I mean, so we're lucky to have one half a man these days. Hey, surely this must be the end of the world.
Well.
So, like I said, I'm willing to share him.
Indeed.
Don't you, we be sharing anyway. I mean, your man probably is my man too. I mean, the same thing he does to you, with you, and for you, he's doing to me, with me, and for me. So we might as well work together. I mean, we ought to help our men be men, especially those that want to be men. Hey, that's all I got to say. Yeah, I got 2 wives, 2 mother-in-laws too. Ain't that a bitch? And my wives love me. Even in my terribleness, they love me. Even though they hate each other, they love me. I just wish all that energy they spend hating each other. I mean, I wish they'd help me fight the devil. Help me make some money. I mean, I try to bring them in harmony. But what can you do with this North American black woman? All that ignorance, selfishness, possessive. I mean, they want you to lie and sneak around and act. Well, I ain't lying and I ain't sneaking. And you can call me nigger, black, African, whatever. But I'm a man and I chart my course. And I ain't follow nobody's agenda but my own. Now, if these women want to get in harmony with me, fine. They don't, fine. But I ain't sneaking around like no dog. One man, one woman. That's the white man bullshit. Now you tell me, what man got one woman? Does a man have one too? So many of these women ain't got no man. Now, if there were 10 women on an island with one man,
Next time now.
what would they do?
What would they do? Tell me.
They would share him whether they liked it or not. And sisters gonna have to do the same thing.
That play was an interesting play. It dealt with themes that you don't normally see in mainstream theater. And Marvin's style was interesting. Even some of the tropes of my life were reflected in some of that poetry. Zaid had a poem where he talked about wanting to leave the country and go to the city. That was a part of a story that I was familiar with.
Yeah, I would go into the country. I would
Yeah.
go into the city.
Yeah, so there was something about Marvin as an artist from someplace like Fowler and coming through West Oakland that had a great deal of resonance. And again, like everything else, when I look back on it, I realize in retrospect more than I did at the time what a rich and fortunate experience that was. When we look at styles, you know, I've not tied myself to your coattails, but you taught me things that I think have increased the way that I do art. And perhaps one of the most valuable gifts you've given me is a kind of trust and pride. You don't take everybody around your friends, you know. You had a kind of trust and pride that allowed you to share your friends with me. And your friends are stupendous, you know. So I got to meet Sonia Sanchez and Sam Greenlee and Amiri Baraka, and to have so much exposure to Baraka till I decided, I thought about this morning. I thought it was funny how Baraka called you his grandfather, but I call Baraka my grandfather and you my father. Really weird, dysfunctional family. None of that would have ever happened for me had not I taken that drama class.
Yes.
You've not always been a blessing. I had a husband. I didn't have as many as my mama, but I've had a couple. John always wondered, like, why? Why? You don't have to mention that man's name. Even every now and then someone will get at me, like, Marvin X, huh? I, I think my relationship with you is a lot like my relationship with my mother. You're not perfect, but you're a genius. And you've been extremely generous. And not just to me. You've been generous as a scholar in general. I don't think people understand that. We don't appreciate things sometimes when we have them. You know, painters are only famous after they cut off their ears or they die, you know. So, yeah. That's
Well,
when I
let's-
met
okay,
you,
so-
and you're still around.
Well, now, as you know, after Laney, we got disconnected for many, many years. I think you had, what, 3 kids at Laney? Was it 3?
Two.
2?
Uh-huh.
But when I saw you again, you had about, what, 6? 5? What was it?
I might have had all of my kids. There was probably 6. There was
But,
probably 6. I have 7 children in total. And
yeah.
I don't know, because
But basically, it was years later,
it was all 7 of them. Yeah.
when I was at Uhuru House
Hmm.
on MacArthur, and I was doing One Day in the Life. And
So word came.
tell how you got involved,
Where it came-
reconnected with me.
Word came through the street. I think it might have been Zaid who
Yeah.
actually found me. Word came through the street that Marvin X was looking for me. And in between us seeing each other, we had both had very separate and wild.
Mhm.
I attribute, I know what was happening for me. I was making art. And I also know that's true for you.
Mhm.
You weren't making art. I mean, as a matter of fact, you wouldn't even letting people call you by your name. You was trying to just have different names and stuff. You were doing such interesting things. I was running around being bout it and having a million kids and a very different trajectory than I'm on right now. And I had sort of got a hold over myself.
Mhm.
Maybe about a year before Zaid told me that you were looking for me. And
Seems like nobody told Michelle. Also, I don't know. Michelle, seems like, I don't know.
I think it was Zaid.
Okay.
But, because Michelle was never connected to us theatrically,
Yes.
you know?
Right.
And there was no singing in that particular play.
Mhm.
And I know that I had all the kids then because at Aru House, they had this record collection, this wonderful...
The archives.
The archives
Upstairs.
upstairs.
Yes.
And my boys, Karan
Yes.
and Stanley,
Yes.
played Frisbee
Yes.
with
The archives.
the archives.
In
Yes.
the Uhuru House.
Yes. They literally did thousands of dollars worth of
Yes.
damage
Yes.
because we were using that for a rehearsal space. I had a bunch of kids. My kids were always with me.
Yes.
They were everywhere I was. If I was there, the kids was there.
Until we involved the fabulous, as Ed Bullins had a play called Fabulous Miss Marie.
Yes.
So the Fabulous Miss Marie became your babysitter.
Yes, the child whisperer.
And she was a
She was
special ed teacher
What
in
was
the
she?
Oakland Public Schools
and she was Cape Verdean.
and Cape Verdean.
And she smoked like a train.
Yeah.
She was a wonderful person. When's the last time you seen Marie?
I have no idea, but she was the one. Actually, from what I recall, she said, and I think I remember her. She was at Merritt on Grove Street. Cause I think she told me once that Huey Newton tried to get at her, and she was scared to death of him. But Miss Marie rescued your children and babysat them, and we had no more problem.
No, and that was something that Marvin
Yeah.
made happen. I did not know her. I wasn't. I never was one. I didn't leave my kids alone. I didn't.
Yeah. Yes.
At that point in time, I didn't.
Right.
And I didn't. There wasn't anybody that I had that was gonna be over them. So Miss Marie just appeared one day,
Yes.
and it was like I had an au pair. She never went away, and
Yeah.
it made me able to do theater, and it stopped, people from wanting to kill my babies
Yes.
because my babies were bored and wanted to sell albums across the room.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. And so one day in the life, if Marvin X has ever been modest, it is about one day in the life. Marvin likes to call that the longest running play in California, or that's the longest running black play in the United States, to my knowledge. That play ran, what did we run, almost 5 years in different places?
96 to about 2002, somewhere in there.
And we were furious with Marvin when he got tired of doing it. I didn't understand that at that time either, because I felt like we was like Beach Blanket Babylon.
Yeah.
In my head then, I felt like we could still be doing that play today.
Yeah.
It actually probably, I don't know, it did not have to stop running when it did. It was, I understand now as
I
an
was
artist.
just bored. I was bored.
He was bored. And I
Bored.
could not understand that at the time.
Yeah.
How could you be bored? We're making a profit. We are booked out. I'm an actress. I'm working. What's wrong with you? But
What's up?
Alright, you gonna have some fun?
Sure I do. What's in it for me?
I'll break you off something proper.
I want no bullshit. I'm
Hey, look here, you serve me right and I serve you proper, and I don't want no jive either.
Baby, what's the matter? You tweaking already? What the fuck you doing?
I ain't tweaking. I'm blocking the door.
Who the hell you think finna come in here? The U.S. Army or somebody?
Hell no, I just don't want no Hindu running in on me.
And want to peep this out. The police ain't never kicked this shit in here.
No.
Somebody sit your ass down, quit tweaking. Come on, let's get loaded. Baby, look here. If you want them tweaking, geeking motherfuckers, I will get ghosts.
Just calm down, baby. Shit, this is how I like to do things.
Alright.
Start taking off your clothes.
Well, then I tell you what, as soon as you give me a hit, I'll start stripping.
Show you right where I put my pipe.
Baby, check this out. Wait a minute. Show me what you want from me. Put it in my hand.
Don't worry, baby. I got you covered.
No, baby. You take that shit, you break that shit, you put my shit right there. So I can see what I'm getting, you know what I'm saying?
Show you right. Alright. But first, we're gonna take this glass right here. Okay? Then I'll kick you down. Alright? Why don't you start taking off your clothes?
No, baby, pump your brakes. You got to give a girl a hit or something, you know what I'm saying? Get a girl in the mood.
Oh,
Baby, what's your name anyway?
just call me in, baby. What's yours?
Petra.
Nice to meet you, Petra.
Well, you gonna put all that stuff up there?
Baby, let me do this the way I want to, okay?
All right, just hurry up so I can give me a hit.
Hold tight, I'm gonna burn it again.
One burn and pass. You know what I'm saying? You fucked up the rotation.
Baby, don't try to tell me how to smoke my dope. Shit, if I want to burn this motherfucker 100 times, that's on me. Now, if you ready to get ghost, you can get on with the quickness.
Why you got to go all that? You ain't got to clown and no shit. Shit. I kind of prepared to have some fun with you. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and now, please.
Here, girlfriend, shit. I'm high.
You give me something so I can get high. Oh, that's what you was gonna give me?
That's proper, ain't it?
You could give me a little bit more.
Depends on how you treat a nigga. Shit, now go ahead, finish your hit. One burning
Oh, it's
pass.
like that. It's like that. You gonna rush me too
All
hard.
right, baby, take your time. You better hurry up and handle me.
With your old 211 pipe. What's wrong with this shit? I didn't get that.
Bitch, don't try to drag me. I saw that smoke going in your mouth.
I didn't get that.
Look, why don't you quit clowning and get busy?
Come on, why you got to be all hard and shit? Come on, man. Come on, give me another little bit, then I'll be ready. What you want? You want some head?
Yeah, baby, can you handle that?
No, for sure. What's the matter with you niggas? Y'all like pussy no more?
That's right. I don't like them guts. You better be a head man, you know? Because I'm a head hunter. Something like that. That proper girlfriend?
Yeah, that's proper.
Show you right, I ain't no chicken shit, nigga. I'm really a very generous fellow.
That was proper. Okay, so, what you want? You want some, oh, you want some hair, right?
That's right.
What's the matter?
Take off your clothes.
Wait a minute. Let me get this shit straight. Yeah, you want me to take off all my clothes just to suck your dick. Everything.
Yeah, everything, shit. You know, get butt naked. Entertain a fella. Shit, put on Showtime at the Apollo.
Hey, nigga, you crazy. You know that? But you know what?
What now?
Baby, you know what? I don't like your attitude. You ain't like a bitch go run off and leave or some shit. What's the matter with you? Shit, nigga, relax. And we finna do everything I came up in here to do. You feel me? I'm gonna suck your dick so good. I'm gonna have your ass up in here screaming.
Well, come on then. You making me real tired with all this drag. Talking about what you gonna do.
Alright, no, I'm just trying to tell you some shit.
What, you wasn't trying to tell me shit as long as you was sucking on that glass dick? Now say what you got to say. Say it with the quickness before I go upside your motherfucker.
Oh, wait a minute, nigga, please. You might be upset, but you ain't finna go upside of his head. I'm just trying to tell you some shit. I ain't no damn toss up. I ain't no crack hoe. Whatever y'all be calling them. Shit, you got somebody mama. I got a 3-year-old baby at home. And that nigga you saw me with, D-Dog, that's my nigga. Well, he got some problems too. This nigga is addicted to making money off the package. And the motherfucker don't like to fuck no more. I told him I had to have mine, you know? So that's why he let me come with you so easy. But it ain't like he be tossing me up and no shit like that. So I don't want your ass to get twisted.
Yeah. Well, that's your business. Shit, I just want you to take care of me right now and you can get back to that nigga. Now don't make me say it again. Take off your fucking clothes.
You know what? It's cold in here. Why don't you take off your clothes?
Show you right.
You got towels so I can wash your funky ass?
Yeah, I got one right there.
You ain't got no diseases or nothing, do you?
Do you?
Hell nah. I just thought you might want to use a rubber, you know what I'm saying?
Don't like rubbers when I'm getting here.
Well, I don't like sucking dicks that ain't covered.
Look, you ready to get those?
I'm just saying this is the age of AIDS. You might want to use a rubber for your protection, partner.
I ain't hardly used a rubber in my life.
Ooh-wee.
Matter of fact, I really ain't been into sex much lately. Shit, I used to have 4 wives. But now I'm a mom. But you know, a nigga need a little sex every once in a while. But you full of drag. That's why I don't fuck with you scandalous hoes. Shit, I can smoke my dope by my goddamn self. In peace. You put a nigga up under too much stress. I got to go out here and hustle the money and then I got to walk through a minefield of niggas just to cop the dope.
I told you I ain't no tosser. I told y'all wasn't no crack hoe. Niggas get confused, you know what I'm saying? You don't gotta give me no dope for me to serve you.
But yeah, so it finally shut down. Yeah.
Yes. But we did it all over the Bay Area for all, especially, became a recovery cult classic.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. And
And I want to add that you became known throughout the California Department of Corrections, the video version.
there were a couple of characters in that play, one that no one else would play. I played 2. I played
The crack hole.
and then I played this female crack dealer
Yes.
who used to toss up
That's right.
the crack hoes.
That's right.
And both of them were parts that we had a hard time casting. I don't think it was initially supposed to be that I was going to direct and be those characters. I sort of liked the first crack hole role, and so I don't do it. We can't get anybody to do it. The other part, this was a really dark, ugly
Mhm.
character,
Yes.
but the character was real. There were people like that,
Mhm.
and so it is perhaps the. I have never played another role where it is. I have people come up to me after I would do Linda. That was her name, Linda.
Mhm.
And Linda told a story of from tossing up these young women who were addicted to becoming addicted herself,
Right.
and then begging the dealers that she used to be, a part of,
Mhm.
just for a crumb,
Right.
and they made her have sex with a dog.
That's right.
And so nobody wanted to tell that story.
Yeah.
And so at some point, we incorporated Linda into.
It was based on a true story, of
Yeah.
course.
I guess it was at the time a couple of stories like that were circulating through East Oakland.
Yes.
So we incorporated that character, and at the end of more than one show, women would come up to me and say, "It's okay, baby. Baby, it's all right. It's gonna be okay, baby. We know. We some of us, we know." And I would think, "Oh my God." No. It's not autobiographical. But then that's a compliment, right? It means you brought the
Yes.
character
Yes.
to life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to move on. You went on from Mind Play and Recovery Theater, where we did the production under, and then you established your own theater, and then you got the bright idea to do the plays of August Wilson, the complete cycle of plays in alphabetical order. So you want to talk about
Chronological.
chronologically, you did the first theater company in the world.
Only theater
So-
company in the world to this day.
What can you say about August Wilson?
That doing the century cycle in chronological order is a ritual. It is a spell. If it is done and properly attended, it'll change your life. It changed my life. It changed the life of people in my troupe. It gave us language for things we already knew but didn't have any language for. And Ifa is a religion that will not hunt you. You know how Seventh-day Adventists come knock on your door? Ifa don't do that. You have to seek Ifa. And I think that for Adimu, for me, I think that we were seeking something, but we didn't really know what it was. I think that both of us had a really high awareness that we were seeking something. One of your favorite poems of mine has always been, he was. He was a Balalian. He was a Muslim.
Yeah.
So there was this departure from anglicized religion for me at a young age. And also a thing of not joining shit that's been a trope in my life. Really close to the Panther Party, never joined.
Yeah.
Close to the Nation of Islam, never joined.
Yes.
So I knew I was looking, but I didn't really know for what. Doing Wilson's work in order, sort of like a map. I used to think that Wilson had some peculiar power to tell a story that would still be true in the future, because he talked about the conditions for black people in the late 1800s in Gem of the Ocean. And then in Radio Golf, he's talking about the conditions of black people in the year 2000. And of course, I'm producing this work after that period of time. And every play was true to what was happening to us in that moment. I finally understood after completing the ritual, no, he didn't have any gift. The gift that he was actually pointing you at was to give you clear vision that nothing had changed for black people in the United States of America from the time we landed here on ships, nothing has changed except for the music and the clothes. And that our connection to a different way of being, that we actually it could come out of a different cosmology, became a real thing, you know. It evolved me politically. I started to practice Ifa for the second time in my life. Well, I was at Laney when I was going out with Aji Down. Aji Down is the person who gave me my name. I was introduced to Ifa, but
Are you talking about the Yoruba religion?
yes.
Okay.
But after Wilson, it became a more serious endeavor, and I understood my resistance to anglicized religions,
Christianity.
Every religion actually that says the premise of the religion is you must believe in yada yada or forever be damned. I find that difficult to accept.
Yes.
And the Yoruba religion is animism. It's actually the worship of nature. It's about balance. Okay, I know nature exists.
Yes.
We can. I evolved to the point where I think that I don't denigrate anyone's religion. The Prophet Muhammad, Jesus, Buddha. I think that there's one God. He's called by many names, and he sent prophets to different people at their level of understanding. So moving forward with Ifa doesn't negate any of that, but it gave me a whole new frame.
Well, explain how you saw that in the work of August Wilson.
It's that's all that's there. It is talking about the journey of Esther. Who do we think Esther, this 385-year-old woman, is? If her lifespan sort of
Which play is that in?
Gem of the Ocean.
Gem of the Ocean, right.
It's even interesting how he wrote the cycle, because Gem of the Ocean and Radio Golf, which are the bookends,
Yes.
were written last.
Yes.
So he goes into this with Joe Turner's Come and Gone.
Right.
And he's telling the story of Joe Turner. And then he sort of goes sequentially through it, a decade at a time. And I believe, and you think about it as a writer, he didn't know the beginning or the end until he'd written the middle. And once he wrote the middle, then he knew what he was doing.
Yes.
And so he completed the ritual. Gem of the Ocean starts in the ocean. It literally starts in the ocean. It's a water play. Esther is Yemenya, the mother of the ocean. It's about our being transported from one way of being into another way of being. It asks us, what do we need to hold on from that other way of being? When we look at Joe Turner's Come and Gone, the second one, there's a beautiful monologue in there about the bones.
Yes.
The bones coming up out of the ocean
Yes.
and walking on the water. We know the transatlantic ocean is the largest graveyard in the world.
Yes. Yes.
Living in America, it would be easy
You know,
to...
Baraka said, like this, in the Atlantic Ocean is a railroad of human bones.
Yes.
A railroad.
But living in America, we might be led to think that two other atrocities that are atrocities. They are atrocities that involve supremacist white thought, like the Holocaust. And then there's what happened to Native Americans here.
Yes.
We might be taught, we were taught growing up in America, that those are the great tragedies of this country. For them getting into the war late and allowing Hitler to run his supremacist theory for so long,
Yes.
and then the way that this country was founded. However,
But of course, Hitler got a lot of his information from America on how to concentrate people, exterminate people,
And what was done
eugenics, and,
and what
all of
was
that.
done to us in the transatlantic slave trade is the greatest American tragedy that there is.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, the ocean is the largest graveyard. And then even of the two groups that I mentioned, and again, let me say, this is not a comparison of suffering. The things that happened to those two groups because of who they were and the reasoning that was given was horrible. It was outside of humanity.
You mean to civilize us?
To see, it was outside of humanity what happened during the Holocaust.
Yeah.
It was outside of humanity what to strip Native Americans from their land, their home, to put them in reservations, to take away their way of life.
Yes.
Like I said, not a comparison of suffering.
To
But
civilize.
these people have their religions.
Yeah.
These people have their languages. We alone are a single person that landed on this shore without language, without a religion, without a point of origin. We were existentially murdered. And for us to be able to coalesce out of that without language, which is worldview and a way of understanding, without language, without religion, without a point of cultural reference, for us to be sitting here today
Yes.
having a conversation.
Yes.
If that's not one of the greatest miracles ever, I don't know
Yes.
what is.
Yes.
So that passage in Joe Turner, when he talks about those bones coming up out of the water and walking on the water and us needing to go into the forest to find the shiny man, because if we could do that, then perhaps we would. Harold Loomis was looking for his place in the world. And it was Caste and his wife who had been taken away when he had been wrongly incarcerated. But drama's metaphor, right?
Right.
So this brother's looking for his place in the world, and he says he cannot go on. He cannot stand unless he finds his place in the world. When Wilson tells him, go in the forest and find yourself. So I think when you ask me, where is it in Wilson? I mean, I could go on.
Yeah.
We get to radio golf. Radio golf is about, do you have to kill everything that you had already? Do we have to kill Africa in us to be successful Americans?
Yes.
So we have a young man who's come up and he's successful. We find out he's the grandson of Caesar Wilkes. Caesar Wilkes is the man who taught me how to understand Uncle Tom's.
Yes.
I used
I don't know why that play just reminds me of Oakland politics.
oh
For some
Lord,
strange reason.
oh Lord, oh Lord.
I don't know why we not doing that play every day.
You're going to make us jump. Don't get me talking about how long Oakland has had black leadership, but hasn't done anything for
Right.
black people.
Well, that
Because-
radio golf.
It's shown, that part of it is, it's there in Radio Golf, but it's also in Caesar Wilkes. Caesar Wilkes tells a tale of wanting to be somebody. Who don't want to be somebody? What grandmother looks at her grandchild and says, go be nothing? So Caesar Wilkes wanted to be somebody. He took care of his younger sister. Black Mary was his younger sister. After his parents was gone, he supported her, raised her. He had taken care of the mother of Black Mary, who wasn't his mother. He sold beans off the back of a flatbed truck.
Yes.
They told him the bowls was too small. He got bigger bowls and started selling chicken wings with them. They told him the wings was too little. They said they didn't like him selling chicken at all because the feet was big, but everything else was little. The man tells you all the things he does to succeed. Finally, he has to open he opens a gambling shack, and some brother comes in, starts some trouble. He kills him. That ends him up on the work farm. On the work farm, the judge sends for Caesar. Tells Caesar, I give you a badge and some money. Now, do you want this? Caesar takes that badge and that job and walks down to the bank, and the bank lets him get some money and a piece of property attached to that badge and that title. So, working for, You said it yourself. When you say it, you say, how are we to make it if the dope man is the number one employer of the youth?
That's right.
So for Caesar couldn't get on. He tried everything he could, helping black people, honest labor, earnest labor. He took in criticism and changed. It just did not work.
Yes.
And so when he became the sheriff, he didn't have no kind of mercy for no blackness.
Yes.
Caesar literally kills freedom in
Yeah.
Gem of the Ocean.
Yeah.
He kills Solly Two Kings. Solly Two Kings represents freedom. Caesar kills him.
Yes.
And so we come full circle in Gem of the Ocean, and we find out in Gem of the Ocean that Caesar regretted killing freedom. He regretted it his whole life. And although he became rich and amassed a lot of property and raised a very successful family, we find out he's been paying the taxes on the house that Esther lived in,
Yes.
the house
Yes.
in which he killed freedom outside of.
Yes.
And now his grandson is running for mayor.
Right.
And the grandson has to decide, who are you going to be? Are you going to turn your back on all of this?
Yes.
The lessons of your grandfather? Are you going to turn your back on blackness? Are you going to turn your back on Africa in order to be able to walk into the bosom of whiteness, to cross the line? And he can't do it.
Yes. What about Fences? That's one of my favorites. Fences.
Fences is about, there's an African proverb that says, if you want what you have never had, you have to be willing to do what you have never done. The story of black people in America is us getting old and becoming afraid because we then have things to lose. Thus, youngsters keep struggling freedom alive because it keeps waking up in them. And then they blame old people for not solving their problems, but then they burn bright. Troy is like my mother. Troy had been hurt by the world. And so there were things that Troy didn't even want his son to try, because if he tried, surely he would be hurt. It wasn't because Troy was mean or didn't love his son. It was because Troy loved his son so much.
Yes.
He wanted to spare him the disappointment that the white world had visited upon him.
Yes.
The idea of why he cheated on Rose, I don't know. Wilson is a man's playwright. He talks about what he knows best, the experience of being a black man.
Yes.
And so the idea that he stepped out on Rose, again, just told a real story of families that are mixed up. I find what Rose says more interesting than the fact that Troy cheated on her. Rose's reaction was like, when do we get to get it right? You know, I never wanted that. Everybody in my family is mixed up. My daddy ain't my sister's daddy, ain't my brother's daddy, and you know I never wanted that for my kids.
Yes.
Well, what I just tell you about my lineage, okay? So, again, this is a fact, it's truth. And at the end of it, it's Rose who raises that child,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So I think that Fences is there's a lot of this is the line. Youth feels this way about it. Elders feel this way about it. In both Fences and Jitney, I think that's an interesting thing for us. See, you have people who are revolutionaries. One of the plays I'm doing in Banfest is called Riot. So it's about it's by this man named David Talley. It's set in the Watts riots, and so it tells the story of a dude who is a Vietnam veteran, and he got hurt, and his friend was in a Panther Party, and he never went to the war, and so the riot is happening. Their son comes, the veteran who has a little house he done bought because he's a veteran, and he has a son who is in school somewhere like Santa Barbara or somewhere. He's taking him somewhere safe,
Yes.
where the white people are,
Yeah.
where he can have a better life, okay? And he comes back and they see him on TV stomping out some white man. And so it's reminiscent of what happened to Reginald Denny.
Yes.
And they realize that's their son. And the Vietnam era father talks about how he's going to burn his son's clothes. He's basically going to cover up what he did, because he's talking about what they took from him, sending him to Vietnam,
Right.
and it didn't change anything for him. And he feels bad about the people he killed there because he doesn't think that that was the right thing to do now. It's his buddy that's interesting now, because his buddy's been sitting there the whole time. They've been watching the stuff on TV
Yes.
until they see the son. And the buddy's been like, yes, sock it to Whitey, burn it down, kill them all, get them,
Yeah.
power to the people, death to the pigs.
Yeah.
So when the son comes through the house, and they find out what he's done, and the son says, I'm getting ready to go back down there.
Mhm.
So come on. You know, the father sits him down and talks to him because of his own personal safety in being. But the ex-Panther is like, well, I now. Yeah, I like that you're going to, but I don't know. I might have and so
Yes.
no, there's no, he's gotten older.
Yeah.
He's got things to lose.
Yes.
And so he's
Conservative.
become conservative
Yes.
no matter
Yeah.
what his rhetoric is.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And the father, the Vietnam, so we have the Panther who is encouraging what the youngster is doing, but he wouldn't do it.
Yes.
And if it was his son,
Yes.
he would feel some other sort of way. You have the man who tried to be a good American, went off and fought in the war,
Yeah.
realizes that might not have been the real move. It didn't do what he thought it would do in his
Right.
life.
Right.
And he's looking at his son, he's terrified. Don't do that. Don't do that. They will get you. They will hurt you.
Yes.
So when you're 16, you say, burn, baby, burn.
Yes.
But then when you're 25, you say, don't do it by my house.
Right.
Then when you're 30, you say, not my kids.
Yes.
Then when you're 40, don't burn down shit. We've worked too hard.
Right.
How do we get what we've never had if we are unwilling to let our youth then do what we have never done?
Right.
You know. So I think that Wilson asks you to consider that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, how do you? And that, it's a real conversation, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we consciously have it a lot. I think that youth I remember feeling like older people just didn't get it right. And then I remember going through a period of time of really trying to get it right.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still trying to get it right. But now I'm often in a room with young people who think, well, if your generation had fixed it, we wouldn't have anything to fix.
Yes.
Wilson,
So let me
go
wrap this
out.
up.
Wilson goes through 100 years. That's 100 years in that play.
Right.
And I said I finally understood what he was really telling you is that nothing has changed, right?
Right. Yes.
So when I sit in the room with these youngsters who say, if your generation had took care of their business, I understand that they don't understand the way time works.
Yes.
And that actually the revolution will never be won if we get to a place where we are free. It will require us being eternally vigilant.
That's right.
And there will forever be threats
Mhm.
to freedom.
Yes.
We will have to continue to evolve as human beings. What we believe on the day that we get free might not be what keeps us free 50, 100 years from
Right.
then.
Yes. Well, let's close out, Ayo, with your feelings about being poet laureate of Oakland. How did you get there, Ayo? How did you get there?
Sometimes the universe
You know,
just
you-
worked
you
the
know,
way it's
you
supposed
see, I
to.
told you about after difficulty comes ease.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. And I don't know that it's interesting, because I wouldn't say that life is easier. I would say that it used to be difficult to be me, and maybe now it's a little easier. Not that it's not still hard in the world, right? I think it's the best crown that I ever got. I mean, considering just our relationship. I mean, the poets that you've introduced me to. That Amiri was the last laureate of Newark.
Yes.
I feel like they
Probably
get.
the last and the most ephemeral.
I think that I think that I can't imagine what else that could happen, even including being paid in full would feel better than this, and not because
You mean, as Baraka said, the reward
yeah
as opposed to the award.
yes it's not because the city gave it to me, you know, and the city, that's a funny thing. Take me to the city's house. These are things that are done by people, right? And I think the part of the city, the people that thought about what they wanted in a laureate, they had a nice little frame. They wanted somebody that was a poet and was good at being a poet.
Yes.
But they wanted someone who knew the narrative of this space. And they wanted someone who could speak for everyone. And they wanted someone who was already out in community, engaged in conversations.
Yes.
So, somebody asked me, so now, you know, the city's an institution, so now do you have to watch what you say? So I don't think that what I say changes at all. I think that perhaps what's called for, though, is for me to look through lenses that I haven't. How do people who feel like it's okay to eat up the whole planet and fart out destruction, how do people like that feel? What motivates them? And so perhaps there are more lenses to look through. I understand that there are, I wonder, there is so much about the city in different little pockets of communities that by being black, I've never been in those communities and had long and sustained conversations. I understand that the Hmong people in deep East Oakland don't necessarily resonate with the slogan Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily count out the Hmong. I want to know why. I would like to go and chop it up with the Hmong. I wonder what the Hmong write about. What do they want? And why do they feel like that? Who made them feel like that? You know? I think that language actually creates reality. And so if I get to be in charge of being representative of the language that then defines this space, that seems to be just a huge opportunity. It's like, was it Rumi?
Yes.
Come to the open field.
Yes.
They invited me to the open field, and I think I'll stay and play a while.
All right. We're gonna close out with that unless you got some last words you want to say.
Now, I don't ever want to say last words. Just think about that. See how that sounds? Do I have last words? Nah, I got a whole bunch of words. I'm going to save them for all the other times.
All right. Well, thank you, Ayo.
You are welcome.